rock bottom as soon as possible. I spent the whole entire summer pretty much alone. You don't have to believe in God to pray. It's kind of for yourself. I just don't know. There are omens and signs from the universe happening all the time, constantly, but we're not always aware of them. Hello, beautiful earthlings. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here and spending these precious moments with me. Today, I wanted to kind of share my spiritual evolution, which is a wild thing to do in just one video, but I wanted to share a lot of the ways that I have grown and evolved and created so much of my life and healed from so much of my sadness and reconditioned my mind and pretty much have rebirthed a new version of myself within the past few years of my life. I have so much footage of my whole entire spiritual journey because I have been posting YouTube videos since I was like 14 years old, maybe even younger.
Hello YouTube, so a lot of you watching this probably don't know who I am. And then I'm wearing these white shorts from Aeropostale.
Not consistently, but just for fun, because YouTube always made me feel less alone, and I've always been an open book, so let's just get into it. Everything started with me reading the book The Secret, which I'm sure so many of you heard of, and I also watched the movie after I read the book, and I was just getting these waves of like just spiritual, like enlightening experiences within me where I felt so connected to the collective, and I felt like everything was just making sense, and it was so easy for me to release any of the conditioning that I had around my life because of the power and strength and the validity that I felt from the words that I was reading. I was like, whoa, my thoughts are creating my reality. Everything that you think, you become. And it just became this like game in my head almost, where anything negative that could possibly happen in my day, I turned around to a positive thing. I got my first manifestation journal around this time at 14. I started doing hatha yoga at the Jewish community center that I worked at. I was kind of like a personal trainer, and I would just walk around the gym and also help people using equipment. And so I started doing yoga and implementing different kinds of meditations. I started off with Deepak Chopra, and I remember in my manifestation journal, I had this morning where I missed the bus, and I turned every possible negative thing that most people complain about or see as negative, I turned it into a positive thing. Everything meant to align in my path was aligning effortlessly and was aligning to the beliefs that I had and to the things that I was manifesting at that time. I knew that anything not meant for me wasn't going to align for me, and I had no attachment about that. That really helped me to release any control around life, because I was like, anything meant for me will align. As long as I'm being conscious and expressing gratitude for all the things that I do have, I'm just going to receive more of those moments. And it's very simple, a very simple concept to me now, but back then it was literally life-changing, because I grew up in a pretty small racist town where I thought that it was so natural to judge people for the way that they looked, and I just felt like gossiping about other people gave you power. And I think a lot of people, when they're going through puberty and absorbing a lot of media where there's different cliques and the cool girls and the unpopular girls, it's like you just learn that talking shit and like flipping your hair and walking away all sassily is cool, and this is a major time of conditioning. I really had this awakening, like talking about other people behind their back is not cool, and nothing external makes you cooler or better than anyone else, and I felt really safe in that belief, and is another reason why I felt so okay with being alone during this time. So I wanted to segue into that part of the journey. I spent the whole entire summer pretty much alone. You know, I was just trying to fit in, and I couldn't make any friends, so I was like, wow, I might as well be the weirdest person on earth and still have no friends but still be happy like being who I am. A lot of times when you start to awaken, the people around you will not be able to meet you where you're at. I was like, okay, anyone who just doesn't resonate with me right now, anyone who is just going to be complaining the whole time we're together, I don't want to hang out with them. Like, I'm really trying to recondition my mind right now and remind myself that everything is a fucking blessing and a miracle. And so I spent a lot of time alone, and I loved it. And I think the reason that everything was so deeply impactful for me, even just reading the book The Secret, was because the contrast of my upbringing and my beliefs then to feeling just for the first time a feeling of safety and feeling connected to the entire collective and having hope for the first time that I could do something positive in this world and believing in the good of humanity. All those things for the very first time were clicking for me around this time, and so it was so powerful, and I felt just waves of bliss and joy because I was feeling safe within my spirit. And it didn't matter that my house was like full of hoarding, and it didn't matter that I had this like Asian background or Venezuelan background. It was like, wow, no, I'm so much more. It was an initiation into seeing the world in a completely different way, in a completely just positive way, in a way where I felt like nothing could harm me and I could create everything that I wanted. And I was so deeply just returning my power back to myself. And that's why I think even now for so much of my journey I haven't used a lot of plant medicines, just because little things have such a big impact on my spirit and the way that I feel in this body. But I did spend a lot of time alone, and one of the key things that I feel like is a reoccurring theme along my journey is that I expected nothing but was grateful for absolutely everything. I feel like coming from nothing, oftentimes not having money for things and feeling like the odd one out of like my school and my friends. All growing up, I would always hear like, oh, your parents are okay with that, or like, why don't you have lunch money, and why didn't your mother give you money for this or that? And I always felt like there was something wrong with the amount that I had, and that I was constantly just being judged by adults and people my age. And so I got kind of used to expecting nothing. Like I got kind of used to what the bare minimum would be. It was like, okay, I'm used to expecting nothing from life. I can only go up from here, and no matter what comes into my field or what is taken from me, I feel like I already know what it feels like to be at the bottom. So I'm unbothered by that. And now that I'm returning this power back to myself, like what would I love to receive? And it was so, I believed so unconditionally in the power of my own mind, and I still do. And that is so key, to always believe, even in those dark moments, even when it seems like everything is falling apart or things are being taken from you, that what's being taken from you is simply not meant for you, and something so much grander is going to align into your path. So I had reverence already for every little thing. Prayer was something that was so important to me during this time. I would talk to the universe so much. The universe was my best friend, and it was almost like I was just talking to the cosmos within me. I was just really affirming everything out loud, which I think is so important, and I've been doing a lot more recently again. Anytime I pray or say affirmations, I say it out loud, and for sure like feel it within my being, but speaking it out loud is almost like weaving this like blanket of frequency of truth around yourself and wrapping yourself up in it. So any intentions, any prayers, any affirmations that you have, think them on the physical plane, feel them within your body, and also speak them out. It's just like you're fully wrapping the frequency of your truth around yourself. And I would talk to the universe every night. I would thank the universe for every big and little thing, and I would just feel so overcome with joy and fullness, and fully knowing that everything that I need, anything that I want to experience, I have the ability to anchor in those experiences right now. I can feel the experience of the day that I buy a brand new house for my family, and it's overlooking a lake, and it's beautiful, and I have a community of loving people around me. I can breathe that in. I can feel that in the cells of my being, and I can feel the gratitude for the life that I want to live without even actually being there, because the mind doesn't know the difference between an internal event and an actual external reality. And so I just constantly felt so abundant and so fulfilled every night before going to sleep, and that only allowed my path to unfold in the way that it has. Also, mantra basically means mind protection, and I love Sanskrit mantras, but there are also mantras that you can just create for yourself in English. And I've been doing that lately, and it helps so much. Basically a mantra, and you're also praying. This is what's so good about praying, is even if you don't believe in God, like I'm Buddhist, I follow Buddhism, and I pray. You don't have to believe in God to pray. It's kind of for yourself. And I had this mantra in my head, which I think all of you should embrace for one day, or however long you need to. It's called, "What you allow is what will continue." And you'll realize that it works for anything. I basically started to see my body as this vessel of transportation that I will be living in. And I also do yoga because it's
It's just great. There's no negatives to doing yoga, honestly, unless you hurt yourself. Oh my god, I have been telling so many people about the importance of meditation because it is so transformational. The more you meditate, the stronger your power becomes to get rid of negativity in your life, and it really is a power, and I want to study it and I want to teach it, but right now I'm just really learning a lot more about it, and it makes me really peaceful and really still.
I still struggled with sadness.
I struggle with depression, and I recently went to the hospital for it.
Even though I was doing all these practices, and even though all throughout high school I was continuing to awaken and realize the importance of structure and working out and really serving myself on all planes of being, spiritually, emotionally, physically. I struggled so much with sadness because although I had done some shadow work of just being grateful for my past, I never actually identified it and like went back to the root of my past. So I moved to Santa Barbara.
But also I have a new setup because I moved to California and this is my new apartment.
And this is kind of where I hit rock bottom, which one of my biggest pieces of advice is for everyone to hit rock bottom as soon as possible. Really just get to that point where you're on your knees, just willing to do anything to heal, because from that place I feel like everything is possible. You're fully surrendered and you're open to receiving guidance, you're open to finally being honest with yourself, and that's what happened to me. I tried to end my life several times. Nearly like every single week I overdosed on Xanax, and when I finally realized I had to be real with myself was when I had tried to end my life one night. It didn't work. The next morning, I didn't realize that I was opening the retail shop that I worked at, and I got charged a $600 fine for not opening it, and I was like, fuck, like I'm now not only letting myself down, but I'm letting other people down, and I literally just tried to end my life, and now I'm just gonna clock into work like nothing happened. Like, I cannot keep living like this. And it was from that point that I canceled my student loans before they fully went through. I dropped out of college. I lived on my mom's floor. She had just moved to LA and didn't have any furniture. I lived on the floor with her working at Zara full time until I moved to New York. And when I did move to New York, I finally got a therapist who I was actually honest with, and within 3 months of being honest and telling my stories, I was able to release and let go of so much. And it was the first time that I maybe allowed this word of being a victim to my circumstances to come into my realm, which I was really opposed to. But I was like, okay, maybe I was a victim in some senses because I was so young, experiencing things that like were not okay, and that social services should have been involved in these certain situations. But I didn't have anger, and I had, once again, this sense of appreciation and gratitude, because even the people that were hurting me, I knew that they were just hurt, and I knew that the lack of love that I was experiencing was only a result of my caregivers and my siblings and the people around me not getting that love either. And I know that my therapist was like, no, you should be angry. It's okay to be angry at these people. And I did not feel a single bit of anger. And I remember I had to stop seeing her because it was almost like she wanted me to continue stirring up these stories. But me just talking about them, me just giving myself this space to be like, yeah, this happened and it wasn't okay. And like, it makes sense that I'm so sensitive and that I have anxiety, or that certain things trigger me because of my past, and really making all of my emotions valid and just kind of remembering that they're valid was enough healing. Just confronting everything that I ever felt and being like, oh, well, that's why I felt that way. Like, I just have trauma. I have PTSD. I'm a sensitive person. I deeply care about the people that I love and have in my life. And yeah, all these things started to click with me simply because I gave myself space to feel everything that I needed to feel. And I think to have an awakening experience, or to be aware of the power of your thoughts and your energy, but to not do shadow work, creates some kind of like dissonance, and it doesn't allow you to fully show up. So doing shadow work is so important, but also not getting caught in the shadow work, not getting caught in the narratives, the victim mentality, even if you were a victim to a certain situation, not even carrying that label around, even being diagnosed with depression. Like, I didn't even want to carry that label upon myself. I was like, no, I know I'm experiencing a depression, but that's not who I am. And I think that making space for you to feel everything, for you to like identify if you were a victim to certain situations, identify the trauma, identify the ways that you cope with the negative things from your past is so deeply important and necessary to do probably every year, or whenever you feel like this darkness or a lot of negative coping methods coming through. It's like important to go back and be like, wait, where is this coming from? What is the root? How can I like deal with this more positively? And letting go of the stories when it's time, when they're no longer serving you, when it feels like going back into those stories is actually just stunting you from moving forward rather than enabling you to move forward, if that makes sense. Now I can move forward, now that I've spoken these things. And it was around that time that I filmed the Draw My Life type of video with Chella Man, where he kind of painted while I told my life story. And that video is very intense and pretty much a lot of the traumas that I've experienced growing up. But it was around that time that I fully like released that story. After I did that video with him was like after I fully released any victimhood that I had in my head and any attachment to those traumas. It was like, okay, like I see that, I make peace with it, and I'm glad that it's out in the world because so many other people have had fucked up childhoods and we are not alone in that. So many people are living the same lives, and from now on, I just want to inspire people to heal and to return to their fullness and to return to their power. I really like what my yoga teacher said one day during a practice was welcome everything, but be beyond it. Welcome absolutely everything to come up because it's going to eventually, your karmas, your thought patterns, your negative habits, like let all of that stuff come up so that it can be witnessed. The more that you're brushing stuff under the rug, just the longer it's going to take for you to move past that current place in your life. Get to that point where you're ready to face everything, and only from there can you move forward and move past a lot of the densities that you may have experienced and even just the programs that you have in your mind. So once again, I have had like these I guess big bumps on my journey. There were really enlightening moments and I just felt super connected, and then these really low lows. So all throughout high school, it was like, wow, like I'm learning so much about myself and the world is this whole new place. And then I moved to Santa Barbara, it was like rock bottom, which was still amazing and so necessary. And then I moved to New York, another spiritual high. I was so grateful for everything when I moved to New York. I have this video where I literally got so lost on the subway. I was applying to jobs because that was the first thing that I did when I moved to New York was I printed out like 20 resumes and went to a bunch of different retail shops in Soho, and it was so rainy this day. I remember my umbrella got blown inside out, like all the metal wires were just poking out, and I was wearing these Adidas sneakers, and a truck drove past a puddle that got me soaking wet to the point where every store that I walked into, you could hear the squeaking of my shoes on the linoleum. And I got off on the wrong subway stop on my way home and didn't have money to take the subway back to get back to my apartment, so someone actually swiped for me. And it was just so messy and like one of the most exhausting days of my life where like everything was just complicated. And then finally hand out my resumes. So it was just a learning lesson. I wanted to share that because I did not lose hope. I pretty much got lost after every time I got off the subway. Don't carry anything heavy for a long period of time. It's stressful yesterday. I just feel so much better this morning, and I'm about to do yoga and then go to the gym. I'll probably get lost, and that's okay with me because I'm just really happy to be alive right now. I'm so happy to be here exactly where I am. But I was so happy. I was so happy just to be in New York. I was so happy to have a bed to sleep on and a door to close behind me. I was so happy not to be on my mom's floor. This is just another time in my life where I expected nothing but was grateful for absolutely everything. I could just rejoice in like closing that doorknob behind me, and I just felt once again like a spiritual high come through. And then talking to that therapist, I was just fully surrendered and enjoying my new reality in New York City. And I feel like New York is a great place to explore your spirituality because every single like religious belief and background and culture exists within this island. I remember going to the Bhakti Center, and for the most part, all throughout high school I was practicing Buddhism. I had this book called Gems of Buddhist Wisdom, and it really made sense to me because it was just this middle path where you're not completely repressing everything and denouncing all material items, but you're also not indulging in them. It was very like, just check in with yourself and make sure that this shit isn't going to your head. That's how I interpreted it. It was like, okay, I think I can find balance, you know, in these ways and not kind of repress any aspect of my being. So I was really into Buddhism. I always called myself a Buddhist. And then when I got to New York, I started learning more about Hinduism. And I was like, wow, I love these mantras and I love these deities. And I honestly don't even know what Hare Krishna means or is, but I know when I'm chanting it, I feel amazing.
I felt my spirit lifting upwards, which is just the only way I can describe that transcendent feeling. And I felt everyone else's presence as well. I felt everyone else's consciousness and spirit and energy, and I just felt like we were all kind of floating upward and dancing together in the sky. That's what it felt like last night. I'm probably like the saddest happy person ever, or the happiest depressed person. I don't know. It's just, I'm so happy, but overall I feel in despair. Like most of the time I just kind of feel an equal amount of like sadness at the same time. Even if it's not like affecting me or whatever, it's still there, it's still very present. I just feel everything all the time. That's why I'm constantly in my feelings, because I'm constantly feeling so grateful for this life, while also questioning why I feel so shitty all the time. I'm very hard on myself. I always forget all the walls that I have broken down in such a quick time. Like, I've only recently started dealing with my problems a few months ago, and I've already broken down so many walls and like really gone to the root of a lot of my sadness and a lot of my problems. And now that I'm kind of plateauing and kind of like, now I have to make these daily habits for myself and just live with the depression, and like now that I've acknowledged it, I kind of just have to like go with the motions and stuff. A lot of days have been starting off down here. This year has just been a very intense year of healing for me, and I feel like most of our lives we are all healing from something or trying to change or be better. I think everyone who's sad automatically thinks they're wrong, they're not normal, they should be like someone else. You can start today, but the first thing you have to do is just accept yourself and realize that change is possible and healing can begin right now.
Vibrational energy is real. Everything has a frequency. There are omens and signs from the universe happening all the time, constantly, but we're not always aware of them. And that awareness really, I think, is just our energy coming back to us. Prayer is total manifestation. I think it's really important, no matter what religion that you are, to pray and to think about all the people you love and what you hope for them and what you hope for yourself. And if you need guidance, to go ahead and ask for it, no matter what your religion is, no matter what you believe. Then I went to a festival in the woods, but I remember calling in love that weekend. I remember hugging a tree and being like, I am ready to receive love in any form that it needs to enter my life. I just called upon it, and 2 weeks later I met my ex-boyfriend, him and I met under a tree. I was literally meditating in McCarran Park. We did really similar work and we're both in the wellness space, and went to Thailand, Bali, and Japan, and I went on my first yoga teacher training during this time, and falling in love with him was another one of those like kind of pitfalls on my journey. Another one of those low moments where I was like, fuck, I have a lot of work to do because all of my negative coping methods and all of my negative beliefs about love and about men really started to come up. So I started self-harming again, which is something that I did in high school and middle school. It was really intense. I remember him being really confused about why it was happening, and me just like crying a lot and overreacting about little situations and thinking he was mad at me all the time, because I have never had like decent relationships with men. So it was so confronting to have a man who was just so kind to me and just so open to hearing me talk and constantly holding space for me. I was like, I just literally don't know what to do. Like, can I feel safe? Like, is this okay? And I remember I went to his family's house for Thanksgiving right before we flew out to Thailand, and his family would drink during holidays, which my family did too, but I guess I never really took part in that. But I drank that night, and I felt so uncomfortable also because I was healing my relationship to my family. I self-harmed really bad that night because I was drunk. I got in the shower and it was not good, and I just passed out kind of drunkenly. and my wrist was bleeding, and he came into the room and saw it, and he was just so terrified. And I'm like, I just can't believe that I put someone else in that situation. But from that night, I like made a promise to him that I wouldn't self-harm anymore, and I haven't since that night, like 2.5 years ago, and I'm really proud of that. But that was like a good initiation and start to what would become the most like grounding and stable part of my journey, where I was no longer having to worry about these deep lows or these high highs. It was just like, now I know how to navigate anything. So me stopping the self-harming was the beginning of this version of myself, I guess, this newly programmed hitomi. But I went through my yoga teacher training, which was a hatha training in Bali, and I completely, I feel like, reprogrammed everything. Every last negative belief that I had about life, I was able to anchor in a new belief and rewrite it on the neurological level. And I think everyone has to do this, is kind of just write down their basic beliefs about life and then write the positive version of that next to it, and just in meditation drop in those positive beliefs about life, continue to speak them out. And subconsciously, our mind is always trying to prove ourselves right. If we believe that we're worthy of love and abundance and joy, our mind will be pointing things out in our reality to affirm and align with those beliefs. If we believe that we are worthless and that life sucks and nothing matters, like, life will identify those things to affirm the beliefs that we have. So I fully rewrote a lot of the negative beliefs that I had about life, and I also was able to really anchor in my positive coping methods. So anytime that I would get anxiety in the past, I was cutting myself. Now, anytime that I would get anxiety, I would do something to love myself so fully. As you guys know, food is a way that I do that. I cook myself a delicious meal, make myself like a really healing tea with fresh herbs. I'll call a friend. It was like, anytime I was feeling sad, it was an opportunity for me to love myself even more. And that was such a huge thing, to be in a place of anxiety or sadness and remember just to breathe. Be in a place of anxiety and sadness, remember to reach out to friends, and to stop those emotions from going further than where they had to go, to catch my own line of thinking before I go to the worst possible outcome and be like, wait, it's okay. Like, I'm feeling this way, but let me do something to remind myself that I do not need to create a negative view of reality from this energetic space. And that is pretty much like why I feel like I've been the most grounded that I have in my entire life. The past 2 years is just because I can catch those negative narratives and thought patterns and not let them run away from me, not allow my mind to go to those very desolate places, and just be like, oh yeah, let me just not listen to myself when I'm in this headspace, and just return. And like I said, the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and an internal experience. So anytime you're having anxiety, your whole body is responding as if you're in danger. And so anytime I was feeling worthless or like I should end my life, my body was just freaking out and just constantly tense. And when I started to use my breath and extend my exhale, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, I was actually able to calm my body down from the physiological level. And I think a lot of times when people have anxiety or experience just a very busy mind, they try to use their mind to calm their mind down, and that is so challenging. And so what makes it easier is using the body, using yoga asana to allow yourself to connect to your breath much easier. And once you connect to your breath, you can calm your mind. And so instead of solving my problems at the level of the mind, I started using other tools like song, mantra, the breath especially, and yoga to make my mind feel better, and then just start to infuse it with positive, reaffirming thoughts. And every time I had an anxiety attack and I remembered to breathe, I feel like that neuropathway and that response to it just got even stronger and more deeply ingrained, to the point where I stopped having anxiety. Anxiety was a regular occurrence for me, even though I was on this spiritual path. It was like, what do I do? Like, I can't just sit in meditation when my mind is screaming at me. A breathwork practice as simple as inhaling for 4 counts and exhaling for 8 counts completely ended my anxiety over time. And anytime that I feel it happening now, I can end it within 2 minutes, and I don't have to revert to things like self-harm or just very negative coping methods. I recommend everyone just be open to all forms of healing and not be so dogmatic in whatever they believe. Allow yourself to receive and experience whatever puts your body and your mind at ease, and don't worry so much about the labels and the identifications of different things. Like, just allow yourself to do the practices that make you feel good. And I ended up ending that relationship just because I felt like I did need the space to grow on my own. I had been in a relationship for most of my adult life, and I was like, I just need to explore like my sexuality with women. I need to feel like alone in the world. And that was another, I guess, like a marking of a spiritual high, where I was like, okay, now I have all these tools, I know how to cope with my sadness, and for the first time I'm just gonna trust myself to live alone and to not be sad and to socialize and to kind of be my best friend enough to invite people over, enough to manage my binge eating alone. It's so much easier, I feel like, to be kind to yourself when you're constantly surrounded by someone that you love. It's kind of easier to see your highest self when everyone around you sees you as that higher being. But living alone, you have to learn to constantly empower yourself and to do good things for yourself on your own. So I did that, and I found my last apartment that I was living in, which was just a random sublet with 4 random roommates. And I just felt, once again, waves of spiritual joy because I had trusted myself enough to end a relationship that I felt like I needed to grow beyond. And I was eating really nourishing meals and inviting friends over, and then of course Corona happened and I just got kind of sad in that little apartment alone. But the journey never ends, and I think that every single day, I mentioned this in my last video, but waking up as if you are not yourself, waking up completely forgetting your past, completely disregarding your future, and just giving yourself a clean slate, not identifying even with your name, and creating yourself every morning from that point. So I've been meditating in the mornings and just entering into a space where I don't even think about my own body. I just enter into this realm that feels fully energetic, and I'm just kind of like this little floating orb of energy. And everything is possible from that place of deep presence, because I'm not attached to any story or any version of who Hitomi is. It's just like, I'm just pure energy. And I have a manifestation journal. I've always had one of these, like all throughout my life. I've always seen the importance of having a journal. In the front of it, I have tons of photos that inspire me. Some photos are from my own life, and I have little notes about all of them, little affirmations about this life, and I just continue to write in it, to write any of my spiritual learnings, any of my realizations. And I also have photos of my friends in here that I love and that bring me joy. So yeah, I still journal in this nearly every day, usually after I'm done meditating. I love to spend time on the earth with my bare feet on the earth, but I feel like nature is something that absolutely everyone can benefit from spending more time in. And if I have any advice for how to shift the collective, how to awaken spiritually, it's simply just to spend time in nature, because first of all, everything in nature is so still that if your mind is not still, that will be very present, and your thoughts may be even louder, but it's good because it gives you a chance to look at them. I also feel like you have no choice but to reflect the stillness of nature, and that your mind will naturally be slower when you're not observing a bunch of chaos and you're just like, oh, look at that leaf just like slowly floating down to the grass. We are just these human animals, and we need to return to our roots. And I think that all beings just spending more time in nature will find the healing that they need, and maybe even learn the questions that they need to be asking themselves. I just feel like this healing journey is so full and so never ending, and I always also am like wanting to check myself and make sure that I'm not using spirituality as a way to decorate my ego. Spirituality is something that I almost feel like I am just this spirit in this body, but my practices and my healing, I don't necessarily identify with that so much to the point where I'm like, that's who I am. It's just a part of me and a part of my story, but it's not my entire identity. Just like me being queer isn't my whole identity, or me being a yoga teacher. It's like, I have all these different things that I enjoy, that I like to delve into and dance within, but I'm just like a being experiencing all of it. And I feel like that's reflected even on my channel. Like, I have videos on all different topics and my style is really eclectic, and I don't dress one certain type of way. I'm just so like literally open to experiencing everything and embodying my beliefs in whatever way feels good for me day to day. Evolving consciously past your own thought patterns and beliefs is really something that you can do to be of service to all beings, and is not something that necessarily needs to be bragged about, because I feel like that just like goes beyond the whole point of it all. I have so deeply realized the importance in just staying grounded and identifying everything and not running from anything, and fully integrating your learning. So fully embodying your beliefs and just like acting upon your beliefs in all moments, and not just allowing yourself even to get attached to the bliss or to those waves of spiritual awakening. And so I try to find that balance, and I try to just keep myself in check and stay humble always, stay open to learning. And I think that's the last thing I want to share is like, just be open to receiving, be open to changing your mind, be open to learning from all different kinds of people. I think everyone is God in disguise, and everyone has something to teach you. Take time to be clear on what you want your dream reality to look like. Take time to meditate on your most embodied version of yourself. What does the best version of yourself look like? What does she wear? What does she do every day? What does she practice? How does she speak? Does she speak from the heart? You know, take time to become very clear on what you wish to receive from this life, and then pretty simply like take steps to get to that place. You are so worthy, and everything is so possible, and I believe in the good of humanity, and I believe that the more people awaken, the kinder we will be to this planet and one another, and the more that we will dissolve the walls of separation and help one another awaken from the illusions that we've all been kind of brought into. I think for many people in my life and my friends, we are the ones kind of like breaking this cycle of family trauma. That is such a beautiful thing to know, and it is a very exciting feeling. Know that you are never alone, even if you don't have friends on your path at this time. Know that you are so connected to a deeper grid of light, and that there are spiritual beings everywhere who are also just meditating. Anytime I close my eyes, I'm like, wow, there's so many other people on this globe meditating at the same exact time as me, and that is so potent. It's like a beautiful feeling. You are never alone. You are never alone in your struggles or your spiritual highs. We are truly connected on the spiritual plane, and we can take that connection and integrate it onto the earth plane. We can stand up for one another. We can integrate our learnings and share our stories. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for all of you being a part of my journey and receiving my energy from the bottom of my heart. I always say thank you so much for being here, but it never loses its meaning. I'm just grateful that you're here, however you're showing up, even if you're a hater, like, just thank you for rising today, because this life can be really crazy and wild, and thank you for navigating through the muck, and thank you for choosing to take and pull each breath deep within your lungs. I can't wait to dance with you more on the spiritual plane. I cherish you guys so deeply. Thank you for listening to this video, and let's just continue growing together and seeing past the illusions of the mind and of this world that we live in. Thank you so much. I love you, and I'm sending you so many blessings on your journey. Bye!